acts of drama. Being very superstitious, he nevertheless made fun of himself all the time. This is dire danger working on Ivan the Terrible, and yet here I am still alive. On the next day, Eisenstein was dancing with Maretska with the same level of enthusiasm at the reception celebrating him and the rest of the Stalin Prize winners. In the middle of the banquet, the ambulance came for me. By the time they arrived, I couldn't feel my arms and legs anymore. I had a rupture in my heart muscle and a hemorrhage, a heart attack. By an incomprehensible, absurd and useless miracle, I survived. I should have died according to all scientific data, but somehow I survived. Therefore, I believe that everything that is happening now is but a postscript to my own biography. The suicide by film was his decision, and that's just what he did, an unfinished masterpiece in 3 acts. Chapter 1. Act First. The nature of this historical leader captivated him. Ivan the Terrible, it seemed like the Tsar's name should be associated with his own. On the back cover of the book about the Tsar, Joseph Stalin wrote, "The Teacher." Late 1930s, early 1940s, a time of John IV craze. Mikhail Bulgakov wrote a comedy play, Alexei Tolstoy wrote a dramatic play, and Sergei Eisenstein was commissioned to direct a feature film. In January 1941, the filmmaker commenced his work. However, the war was bound to make adjustments to the script. The evacuation, the star-studded trip. During the stops, the guide was boasting Battleship Potemkin, the youth of Maxim, Jolly Fellows and Circus, the biggest names of the film industry traveling together. What an unprecedented occurrence! The film crew arrived in Almaty in the record time of 2 weeks and got settled in the house, which was immediately dubbed the Laureate. It was Maxim's Gorky's The Lower Depths come to life. Water was dropping down the walls, everything was damp. 4 bunks as a joke, I kept asking permission to hand the laundry around the room to complete the picture. Like everyone else, Eisenstein had 1 room, which he managed to turn it into a 2-story space by adding a mezzanine. It was his study, the place where he worked on Ivan the Terrible. Bookcases stretching from the ceiling to the floor, photographs, memoirs. Her father, well-known art historian Leo Warszawski, knew many legendary individuals personally. Consultant and commissioner for the evacuees, Leo Ignatievich, together with writer Shklovsky, were among the first to be introduced to Ivan the Terrible.
Sergei
Mikhailovich asked us to sit on the floor, and we did, and he spread before us his pre-production drawings. It was an absolutely magical experience, because everything was so stimulating and visually comprehensible and so vivid. It is quite possible that seeing those materials was even more fascinating than watching a finished film on the big screen. The early period of the Tsar's reign before the introduction of Oprichnina in 1565, as well as military victories in Kazan, are described in the first part of the film. In the second part, the Boyar conspiracy initiated by the Tsar's aunt Yefrosinya Staritskaya, who dreamed of enthroning her own son, Vladimir. But the dialogues were not working out, and Eisenstein decided to break the film into 3 parts. The script was over 200 pages long. Each frame, each character had been meticulously and elaborately fleshed out on paper. Chapter 2. Act Second. There was only one actor whom Eisenstein considered for the part of Ivan Vasilievich, the legendary Nikolai Cherkasov, who had played Alexander Nevsky, Professor Paganel and Peter the Great. After much persuasion, the future Ivan the Terrible arrived in Alma-Ata, having left his wife and 1-year-old son in Novosibirsk. He was such a delightful man, so cultured and incredibly refined. Needless to say, the cast and the crew adored him. Людмила Циликовская was also well loved as an actress. She played the part of Tsarina or Tsaritsa, as Eisenstein used to call her character in Ivan the Terrible. Initially, the great filmmaker offered the part of Staritska to Faina Ranevskaya, but the casting decision was never made. Ranevskaya took offense, and in a characteristic fashion declared to her friends that she would rather start tearing the skin off her own behind and selling it than act in an Eisenstein film. Of course, Eisenstein heard about it and as a joke sent the actress a telegram from Alma-Ata which read, "So, how is the selling coming along?"
Не скоро забудет царь расстрелу казанскую.
When Eisenstein worked with an actor, he turned him inside out, jerked the colleagues of the director. He did it with Alexei Kadechnikov, the actor who played Vladimir, a guileless and harmless fool. Sergei Mikhailovich dreamed of casting him again in the third part of the film, in the role of the Tsar's confessor Eustace and Sigismund, but the idea was never fulfilled. Eric Pyriev, son of the famous director, played the Tsar as a child. It was delicate work which aligned two very different individuals. Everything in this film, movement, details, the lighting and the shadows, serve the frame completely and purposefully. It was not just a procession but a psychological move, a black ribbon on white snow, a queue of people moving across the frozen Sairan Lake towards the Alexander settlement, with the intention of asking the king to return to the throne. It seems like the beard, or the angel of its curve to be precise, is the dominant feature in the frame. Cherkasev's face and makeup presented many difficulties. In the film, the Tsar's age was to range from 17 at the beginning to 50 in the final scenes.
They shot
the Tsar's early years first. They had to have the sides of Cherkasev's face pulled back in order to make him look younger, but the actor never complained and never seemed to tire. Day after day, the modeling and molding of the characters took place. Every millimeter mattered, every detail that had taken ages to discover was implemented. No leeway was allowed, admitted the master himself. Makeup artist Gorunov got a severe dressing down from the director when he slightly loosened the stickers on Efrosinia Staritska temples, which were pulling her eyelids upward. Even the bloody bruises on the actress's head were not accepted as an excuse. He loved for the film set to be in perfect order, in the sense that he had low tolerance for any kind of falsehood in the makeup, costumes and props. He was very lively. I remember the way he walked. He had the walk of smallish, plump people, you know, he walked like that. He managed to be everywhere at once. Makeup room, dressing room, setting the frame, checking the artist's work. Chapter 3, Act 3rd. Film set and all the props. The filmmakers received provisions of royal proportions. 4 buckets, 40 kilograms of Ural gemstones were brought on set. The Istra Museum arrived in Almaty, granting the filmmakers the right to use authentic vestments of the patriarchs of the 16th century. Actor Gebrev wore actual vestments of Nikon in his scenes. There was this man who was heading the props department, and he, this Shandibin, purposefully traveled to some town. I don't remember which one, where there were ruined temples with all the authentic costumes preserved. He succeeded in bringing back genuine costumes of that era. By special order in November 1942, 300 kilograms of gold brocade and 600 kilograms of silver brocade were allocated for the film. Fur collars, carpets, artificial pearls and jewelry were being purchased for the project by the carload. The whole city was plastered with advertisements. The Tsar's fur coat was altered 9 times because the director was displeased with the result until the most famous tailor in the country was entrusted with this task.
Отец
The head
Райзмана.
tailor was Reisman's father, Jacob Ilyich, a very well-educated man.
Образованнейший
He spoke
личность,
English,
знал английский
and
язык,
Eisenstein took great pleasure in talking to him in English.
беседовать на английском языке.
The greatest wizard of the dressmaking art, Eisenstein's nickname for Jacob Reisman, was recreating history in details. There is a frightening naked man standing in the corner. What makes him fearsome is that he's absolutely alive. It's a padded mannequin. I have never seen a spectacle more terrible in its exposed naturalism than this naked boya with its belly hanging over the weak legs.
Ганзейцам платить способнее.
The volume padded with cheap cotton wool was supposed to compensate lack of thereof. The reality of the evacuated people with its meager food rations did not resemble the reality of the historical era of the slightest. Here is Tsar Ivan Vasilievich taking advantage of the situation in a hastily constructed canteen, demanding a second helping. Mother, look, here's the fearsome pagan Tsar.
Ныне
From now on, I will be that which you call me. I will be terrible.
отрицаете.
Грозным буду.
A metropolitan bishop dressed in a cassock is waddling along the country road. Suddenly, a group of oprichniks on skis race past him. Two boyarians in fur coats follow suit. An enormous crowd of plebeian commoners in red boots push past. Ivan the Terrible is sitting on a kolkhoz earth mound. Country children are running from one group to the next, and the bugs are buzzing in the air, surprised at the unusual commotion, from the memoirs of eyewitnesses. It was the case of art imitating life. The storming of Kazan was a difficult feat. I was storming an abandoned grain elevator just like in 1943. Kazan was being stormed on the outskirts of Kaskelian in the Almaty village, formerly known as Politotdel. Location shooting, however, did not happen very often. The majority of the scenes were filmed inside the Palace of Culture, which is now the central building of the concert hall. At the time of filming, it was transformed into low-ceilinged and gloomy royal chambers. The walls played their role brilliantly, as did the candles. The latter took some preparation. Instead of burning steadily, they were supposed to flicker anxiously, and in order to make the candles weep, pure wax was used. No less than a ton of it was used in the production. That was the time of experimentation, innovation and implementation. No days off, no vacations, no paid overtime from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. In 1944, right before the New Year's holidays, a commission for the Arts Committee arrived in Alma-Ata. The footage of Ivan the Terrible was met with approval. The first part of the trilogy was released in January 1945. The director and the film crew received the Stalin Prize of the first degree for their work. Everyone except Tsilikovskaya, the leader, did not like her queen. Eisenstein had to be rushed to the hospital right in the middle of the celebration banquet. The next series was banned immediately after the first screening. The scenes of Ivan the Terrible repenting of his sins were deemed unacceptable by Stalin.
Покинутым. А бояре правители.
Ivan the Terrible made a great mistake by not eliminating 5 large feudal families. If he had destroyed these 5 boyar families, the time of troubles would never have arrived. Whenever Ivan the Terrible executed someone, he repented and prayed for a long time. God was his hindrance in these matters. During his conversation with Stalin, Eisenstein was only thinking about one thing when asking for delay. We will reshoot everything. But he already knew that we would never rewrite the scenes filmed in Alma-Ata, of the frantically dancing oprichniks, half-lit royal chambers and the Tsar torn by inner turmoil. The forbidden film would be destroyed immediately. He needed time to save the material. It could happen if the film was not shut down completely, which was only possible under one condition. Back in the evacuation, he learned from Wolf messing the date of his death. He will die aged 50, and so he did, 10 days after the Jubilee, on the 11th of February 1948, a suicide by film.